Okay, this meeting is being recorded. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Beyond the White Picket Fence launch party. I am so honored that all of you took the time to be here tonight to celebrate with me. I think it's really important for us as women, and I see that there's one man in here as well. So I'll try to be conclusive as possible, but I do mostly speak to women and work with women. But I do think it's really important for us as women to take the time to celebrate our accomplishments. I know in the past, I'm someone like once I would hit goals, I would always be like, okay, what's next? What's the next big thing? And trust me, I'm already thinking about like the second book I want to write. But I think it's also important to like say, man, I worked so hard for this, but so much time and money and energy. Like let's really celebrate it. Let's sit in this accomplishment. And so I'm hoping that this gives all of you permission to do this as well with all of your accomplishments in your life and throw parties and drink champagne and invite people to celebrate with you, because this is what life is about. So I'm so honored, that all of you are here tonight. So what I wanted to do was to do a opening welcome meditation, so that way we can get present in our minds and call in all the good vibrations and abundance, and we can have our spirit guides join the party, and the more the merrier. So Monica, I don't want you to close your eyes, but everybody else, if you're not driving, what you're going to do is you can sit on your chair, sit on the ground. If you want, you can turn off your video, but we're going to go ahead and close our eyes, and we're going to put one hand on our heart, one hand on our belly, or you can put your hands in your lap. Relax your shoulders away from your ears, and start to let all the to-do list melt away, any worries, any fears and anxieties. Let's just try to be really present for the next 90 minutes and soak up the moment and let ourselves have fun and celebrate and meet new like-minded friends. Maybe learn something new tonight. Who knows what's possible? So slowly begin to breathe in through your nose. Exhale out through your mouth or back out through your nose. Breathe in through your nose. And exhale out. Feel your whole body relax and open up with each breath. Continue to take slow, nice, deep breaths in through your nose and back out. And I want you to let a wave of love and gratitude to wash over your body. And think of something that you're really grateful for in your life right now. It doesn't matter how big or how small it is, but what's something that you're really grateful for? Let that gratitude fill you up all the way from your toes up to your head. And while you're drinking in that delicious love and gratitude into your energy field, I am going to pull a card for us from my Soulful Women deck. So that way we can get some more reassurance and messages from the cosmos above. So go ahead, continue to keep your eyes closed, continue relaxing your body, getting more present in your body with each breath. Letting yourself sit in your deepest desires. Remember, we are not here tonight to play small. We were put on this earth to do really big shit. And we're going to give ourselves permission to go after those dreams fearlessly, without any regrets, being worried about what other people will think. Because if I was worried about that, this book would have never happened. Start to focus and think about what it is that you want most to accomplish next in your life. And hopefully this card that I pull is going to give you more clarity and answers and reassurance towards that. All right, we're gonna go with this one. Oh, okay. This is a good one. So continue to keep your eyes closed as I read you this card. It's called Igniting My Joy. Attuning to the highest good in myself and others ignites my natural joy. So the extended message is, when I hold loving intent for someone dear to me, something magical happens. I ignite my own joy and happiness when I care about another and send them blessings of peace, goodwill, and ease. Now I nurture my capacity to be kind to myself as well as to others. I regularly include myself in my well wishes, my goodwill, and my loving intentions. Since we are all intimately connected, my own happiness grows from this positive attunement to myself and to others. May we all be safe and at peace and live with ease and grace. All right, go ahead and sit with that message for the next couple of breaths. All right, and when you're ready, start to come back into your body, wiggling your toes, wiggling your fingers, opening and closing your eyes. Go ahead and give yourself a nice little stretch here, moving around in your body. Maybe this is the first time that you get to actually sit and breathe all day. If anyone's curious to see, this is the card I pulled.
Beautiful.
So yeah, really pretty and vibrant, and I feel like it totally matches the energy of this call tonight. So I love that. I love that that was the card that came up. All right, so let's go ahead and see what's on the schedule for tonight. So what we're going to be doing, okay, so that was the opening welcome meditation, so check that off. Next, I'm going to be doing a book reading, or a reading from my book. And then after that, we will be hearing a word from my editor, Nikki, who is on here tonight. And then after that, we're going to do a live Q&A / coaching, or just an open space for people to talk about the book, what they liked, didn't like, or anything that came up. So yeah, that's how it's going to go down. So before I jump into the book reading, do we have any requests? I did a poll in my Facebook group earlier, and I listed all the chapters out, and everyone wanted me to read from the Nursing Bodies, Not Soul chapter, which was all about me figuring out that I wasn't meant to be a nurse and that I had a higher purpose in life, which I don't know if it in that chapter I figured out if it was coaching or not, but I knew it wasn't nursing. So I can either read from that chapter, or if there's another chapter you want me to read from. I mean, there's a lot more juicy stuff in here. I mean, there's a whole chapter on sex. So I don't know. Just if you want to vote really fast in the chat box, I would love to. I want to make sure I read the right chapter. This is a big decision. I don't want to fuck this up. So let me know what your favorite chapter is, what I should read from tonight. Hopefully everyone has a drink. You can let me know what kind of drink you have in the chat box. Oh, Monica said sex. Of course you did, Monica. Kathy said the one you mentioned, like you could fuck this up. Go Juicy, my book is still on its way. Kathy has sparkling water and peach. Oh, delicious. So does everyone want the sex chapter? You horny bitches, I knew you would. Okay. Uh, I may just read the beginning part of the book. That was, I think, my favorite. Okay, hold on one second. The preface, I think that's what it is. The prologue. Okay, yeah, let's start with the prologue. So, full disclosure, if raise your hand if you've already read my book or you're still reading it. Okay, I know Melinda. I know Stephanie is. Monica. Okay, Erin, were you going to say something?
It takes a while to get to Canada.
Got it. Okay, so you don't have it yet. That's okay.
No, not yet.
Not a problem. You can still stay here in the party tonight.
Okay, thanks. Spoiler alert, you're going to read from the book. Okay, good.
Right. So one of my biggest role models is Glennon Doyle. I don't know if you all know her, but she wrote Love Warrior. And so I was reading through her book for inspiration, and she put a prologue in her book. And so I was like, okay, I want something similar to that, something really juicy that's going to grab everyone's attention right from the start. And a lot of you know kind of my history of being the good girl and growing up as a Lutheran, homecoming queen, straight A student. So I was like, man, I want to put something like just, right out there from the beginning. So that's why I did this. And it's so funny because everyone that reads my book is like, wow, Krista, all I did was like read the first like 2 pages and I'm already hooked. I can't believe you're already talking about this. So it goes there. All right. So with that, oh yes, Fast Girl. Yeah, I love that book as well by Susie Faber Hamilton. Okay, so it was April 2015, and Chad and I found ourselves on a romantic double date with Finn and Jenna, the married couple that completely changed everything for our marriage moving forward. However, they were not the first married couple that Chad and I had dated since we decided to open up our marriage. After creating a profile on the swingers dating website called Cassidy, Chad and I had so much fun over the next 2 years, meeting, talking, partying, and sleeping with all kinds of different couples. We learned the ins and outs of the lifestyle, the type of people that it attracted, and all the lingo and rules that go with saying yes to an open relationship. It was eye-opening that all of this existed, and here I thought that 70s key-style parties were more of a myth than anything. Our profile name was Protein Shakes, since I was neck deep in the bodybuilding world at that time and drinking chalky vanilla protein shakes 3 times a day. We uploaded several nude photos of us, but without our faces in the picture, and put down our sexual preferences, which we were just guessing at the time, since we had no idea what to expect and waited to see what would happen. Well, overnight, we got hundreds of messages from couples on the site wanting to get to know us better and take us out on a first date. It felt very similar to what you would do if you were single and taking a stab at online dating, except you're doing it as a couple and being upfront and honest about what your sexual needs are. Much to our dismay, many of the couples were much older than us, already having children, and didn't take care of their bodies very well. I was shocked that there wasn't younger, sexier couples like us on the site. Chad and I were a rare find, and hence why our inboxes were blowing up with requests. When Finn and Jenna came into our lives, I knew deep down in my gut that meeting them was going to change everything for us. And I was right. After our double date at the Swanky Boutique restaurant in downtown Portland, the 4 of us drove back to our Airbnb. I nervously tried to anticipate what it would be like the 4 of us naked together in one room after months of building up through group texting. We started off the chilly spring evening sitting on an outdoor orange couch on the roof of the hotel, drinking sugary cocktails and gazing up at the dark, starry night. I looked up over at my husband with his arms wrapped around Jenna as I cozied up to Finn's strong chest under our blanket. It was always mixed feelings for me, trying to enjoy the man I was with while watching my spouse with another woman. Feelings of jealousy combined with competition, topped with lust and a side of passion. As I saw them start to kiss, my stomach dropped, and I knew that Finn would be leaning in shortly to kiss me as well. All of my senses felt alive, and even though most people would never understand why Chad and I put ourselves in these kind of situations, we rode the thrill of being on a sexy first date while being married after 4 years. Ooh. So that's the opening. Should I keep? Everyone's like, yes. Um, should I keep reading a little bit more, or you want a little bit more? Okay, let me go to the actual chapter so we can like get into actual details. And Nikki, I would just be so curious to hear what was going through your head as you were editing all
Yeah. It's definitely the sauciest book I've ever edited.
Yeah, I think I remember you telling me, you're like, wow, you've had a lot of experience already.
Yes.
By your early 30s. Oh, and I love it. This chapter, it's on page number 111. So what does that tell you? That's a sign from the universe right there. I don't know what kind of sign, but okay. Let's find the good stuff here. Get to the good stuff. Finn plus Jenna are married lovers. Okay, here we go. All right, just one moment. I missed it. Okay, hold on. Okay. We're just going to go straight to some of the other couples that we met. Okay, so we decided to meet up with our first couple. This is a different couple, just so you all know. Okay. We decided to meet up with our first couple, John and Veronica, who were in their 30s, that had 2 kids and owned a CrossFit box in downtown Seattle. They both were very attractive, in shape, and we seemed to have a lot in common, especially since we were just getting into CrossFit ourselves. We dressed up to the nines and met them at a bar under a hotel in Seattle, thinking that the night was definitely going to end up with all of us fucking each other. I mean, why else would they choose a location under a hotel? We spent the dinner calming our nerves with lots of alcohol and asking tons of questions about how the lifestyle worked, since they had already been doing this for a couple of years prior. They're kind of like our first mentors, which was nice since Chad and I had no fucking clue what we were doing. Hopefully no one has little ones around. I know Gemma is here, so hopefully she doesn't mind hearing the F word. Okay. As the dinner came to an end, we finally got the balls to ask if they wanted to all get a hotel room upstairs so we could do the dirty deed. Much to our embarrassment, they told us that they didn't sleep with new couples on the first date. Apparently, this is a common rule in the lifestyle, just like it is in the regular dating world. My mind was blown that this was not all just about the sex, but actually people taking the time to get to know each other and see if there was chemistry. Not what Chad and I were expecting at all. The couple decided that they liked us and asked if we wanted to arrange a second date, which we quickly agreed to, invited them to have dinner and drinks in our home, which would make it easier and less expensive for some playtime afterwards versus getting a $200 hotel room for the night. 2 weeks later, John and Veronica arrived at our doorstep with wine in hand, their kids safe at home with a babysitter, as 4 adults decided to indulge in a sinful evening together. The first half of the night went great. We laughed, enjoyed good food outside on our deck, and told stories like 4 friends would. That's my place. Okay, the second half of the night got interesting. We all moved inside and sat in front of the fireplace, and before we knew it, John and Veronica started kissing each other. Chad and I took that as a clue that we were supposed to start being intimate with each other as well. My pulse was racing at the thought of another couple watching my husband and I make out. Then clothes started to come off and we swapped partners. It felt glorious to kiss another man and know that I had my husband's approval because he was right there. There were no concerns about cheating. Everyone was on the same page. It was so exhilarating. Why doesn't every married couple decide to open up their relationship is the question that ran through my head. I also got to watch Chad with another woman, which was an even mix of jealousy and fascination for me. Maybe some people couldn't or wouldn't handle the feeling of jealousy very well, but I enjoyed it very much. It reunited that hot and steamy passion I felt for Chad when I first met him, which was nice to know that one can still experience that type of lust even after they get married years later. Everything was going great until Veronica quickly stood up, stumbled over me, stepping onto my face, and drunkenly scrambling to the bathroom so she wouldn't miss the toilet as she vomited her dinner back up. None of us realized how drunk we had all gotten, and obviously Veronica wasn't tolerating her alcohol very well. That was the end of the evening as John and Veronica retreated to the junior suite bedroom downstairs, and Chad and I passed out in our bedroom upstairs. Much to our disappointment, we didn't hear from John and Veronica ever again. They had slipped out early in the morning to get home to their kids, and we were part confused and part relieved since the night had ended so awkwardly, but we knew there'd be plenty of other couples to meet on the Cassidy website. Is that a pretty good stopping point there? Yeah. Remember, you have to actually read the book because there's a lot more. Oh, Stephanie said, cuss all I want. Okay, thank you. Stephanie, you'd be surprised what kids can understand. So who knows? All right. Okay, so I think let's go on to Nikki next, a word from Nikki. So I would just love to hear, your thoughts about what it was like for us working together and editing this book and just don't hold back.
It was a very enjoyable experience, but what I would call an emotional roller coaster. So there were the highs with the crazy stories and the amazing travel that I was learning about as I was working with Krista. But then there was some really, heart-wrenching, super vulnerable moments, some really just gut-wrenching stories that women, shared in the book, with Krista and really, opened themselves up as well. So I felt like, yes, it was very much like a roller coaster going through the book. There were even some points where I was doing back-to-back interviews and I would have to take like a couple days off because it was just what some of these women had survived was just unbelievable to me. But I was, so amazed at Krista's willingness to be vulnerable, especially this day and age with the internet. Everything is up for scrutiny. Everybody's under a microscope. Everyone has an opinion. And it can be a very rough place, that it could be really hurtful and difficult to maintain self-esteem. And, she does it with such grace and, takes the negativity and turns it into something positive. And I think it really takes a special kind of person to be as vulnerable as she was in this book for the sole purpose of helping others. She had worked through a lot of the situations that she talks about in the book already. So this was for others because she felt that if she shared what had once brought her shame and made it something not shameful anymore, then hopefully other women would be able to shed their shame as well, which I think is so important, especially this day and age. We've come a long way in some ways, but in others, we have so much farther to go, I think, especially as women. So it was so touching to see that she was willing to lay it all out there, no holds barred, every story, every success, every failure, left nothing back. It's really unusual. Most people will edit their story to some degree to fit a certain narrative, and they may mask it behind, well, I'm trying to protect so-and-so. And really they're trying to protect themselves, because it's very difficult to be that vulnerable. So it was so refreshing, to work with Krista, where she was just willing to lay it all on the line in the hopes of even helping one person that was worth it, for her. So I'm sure, as all of you know, she's a gem of a person, wonderful to work with. And I just remember a distinct story. I was doing an interview with her on the phone for the book, and I was in the car with my sister-in-law who was driving, and we were on the way to the airport. We were flying out of Dallas to go to Europe. And so my sister-in-law could hear my side of the conversation, and we got off the phone, and she was like, "Who is that? Like, what are you what book are you writing? Like, what is that? Like, this is crazy." And I was like, "Oh, you have to read this book." And she ended up loving Krista, working with her for a little bit, like read the book as soon as it came out. But she was just like, I couldn't even believe like what you were, like someone would put that in a book. Like, that's so amazing, that they would be, that open with it. So it really was a pleasure. And I'm so happy, because I feel like it was such a labor of love, on her part. And now where you are, I feel like now you have a whole other book to write about where you are now. This book could have been easily 1,000 pages with all of your stories. But yeah, it was really a great experience, walking through that and working with all the people that were so open and sharing and just hearing you share. Because that's a rarity. I've been involved to some degree, either ghostwriting or editing, over 60 books, almost 70 now. And I've never had anyone be that open. So it's, definitely, like I said, people usually hold a piece back that they never can just quite let go of. And that Krista was like, nope, it's all going out. So for those of you who haven't finished reading it, I hope you do. It's definitely worth it. Yeah. Yeah. And if you have young ones who know how to read, don't leave it laying around.
Right.
So, they'll learn some new words.
Thank you so much for saying all that. And yeah, I remember after you were interviewing the women who shared their stories in the book, and you were like, man, these stories are really intense and heavy.
Yeah.
And I need to take some time, because yeah, they were. Yeah, and it wasn't just my stories, but there was a lot of other women who contributed stories for this book. And it was just a way for us to like all release our shame together and shed light on these heavy topics that had happened in our lives.
Yeah, absolutely. Because if we can't forgive ourselves, how can we expect other people to? I mean, we tell people all the time, let it go, have some grace for yourself, forgive yourself. But if we don't follow that own advice, it can really fall on deaf ears. And I think Krista is just such a great example of really just letting that go and teaching people how they could do it.
Thank you. And thank you for believing in me right from the start. I know we had met twice, 2 different times when I was thinking about writing this book. And I had met with another editor who basically told me, like, we don't want to publish your story. So I was a little bit heartbroken from hearing that. And then you told me, you're like, of course that we need to publish this. This is your story. We get this out in the world. And right from the start, you saw my vision. Because, a lot of people could think like, yeah, why do you want to talk about your sex life and put all this out there? But you saw it was so much deeper than that, of this way of like, just sharing these stories to help others not feel so alone. And it's already been working. So many women who've been reading the book have been coming up to me and opening up about their own secrets in their life. And then they feel better, they feel lighter. And so I'm like, yes, it's working.
Yeah, absolutely. It really does. It just takes one person. And for them to feel connected to, or to feel like they understand, and that can just be life-changing, for them, which I think is so important. Like I said, these days, especially, there's so much negativity in the world right now, and we just need some positivity, I think, and that it's just like, it's a bright light.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'd love to now talk a little bit about like the decision behind doing this, because this was a really big deal. Like, you don't just like lightly decide, oh, I'm going to write a book and then do it. Like, I mean, it's a really big deal. And I didn't know what I was getting into. when I said yes to this whole experience. And I remember that Nikki and I met through a mutual friend. And when I met Nikki, I was just like bawling my eyes out. And I was like, I take that as a sign from the universe that whenever I get really emotional, I'm supposed to move forward with something. And then Nikki, and I was like interviewing you and asking you all these questions of like, why would someone write a book? And you told me a lot of really fascinating things, which I think would be really helpful for everyone here to hear, because I know a lot of you all are life coaches and entrepreneurs and might be thinking about writing a book yourself. And you told me that what percentage of people think about writing a book? It's like, is it like 70 or?
Yeah, so it's like 76% of people, if you poll people, will say that they seriously are considering writing a book. They're serious about wanting to write a book, and less than 6% of people do it. It's kind of one of those universal goals that almost everyone will say that even they would love to at some point write a book, but 94% of people never do. It takes commitment, dedication, a lot of hard work, perseverance, and a lot of people just, they don't have the time, and they don't make the time, because it's a passion project. It's like birthing a baby into the world. So
It was like a 3-year gestation.
Yeah, and it's a very emotional process, and it can be very cathartic as well. You can bring up a lot of things that you realize you still need to address and deal with. It can open some fresh wounds. So it's a real process, definitely, to go through. It's a writing process, but it's a spiritual process a lot of times for people.
It was the best form of therapy I could have ever done.
Yeah,
it really was.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, when you told me 3 to 6% of people will actually write a book in their lifetime, I'm like, hell yeah, I'm so competitive. So I'm like, I'm going to be part of that 3%. I don't care what it takes.
It's true. It's just, it takes a lot of time, and effort and stick-to-itiveness, to get it out there. It's a big process. And I think what a lot of it is for people, it's not even necessarily that they won't take the time, because if it was a priority for them, they would do it, right? Which is probably something you would share with your clients, right? If you make it a priority, people do it. But it is a very, you have to be able to be vulnerable. And that's really what's difficult for a lot of people. And I'll tell my clients that your reader will know if you're not being completely transparent and trying to put out there as if you are. They'll pick up on that. So if you're going to do it, and if you're not, then don't. Because there's nothing worse than putting something out there that people feel is not genuine and being represented as something, that is. Like, readers are smart, they can tell. So that's advice that I give to all of my authors. Really be committed to leaving it all on the table if you really are truly trying to make the impact you say that you want to make.
Wow. I'm glad that I decided to just go for it and put it all out there, because I didn't realize that readers could kind of see through that. So that's interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Fascinating. Something else you told me too was you're not going to make money from this book.
Right.
And I was like, what?
Yep. I tell my clients, you're not going to get rich selling books. I mean, that's something that I'm always really honest with people about, because it is a significant investment for them. And that's something that people say, how much money am I going to make? And it's like, if that's what you're in it for, it's probably not for you then, honestly. So typically what I see clients who move forward, one are like Krista. So they are looking to make an impact, spiritually, emotionally, have a connection with their readers. This is a legacy that they're leaving. They're really trying to put a tool out there to help humanity. I mean, that's really, whether it makes money or not, doesn't matter. If I help one person, it's worth everything. And then you have some of the more business coaches versus life coaches that mostly stick with the business side, and it's more of a how-to, and it just kind of becomes like a foundation of their marketing program, basically, to establish them as like an authority, like in a specific space. But they're not necessarily really hitting on any emotional kind of parts for it. But yeah, I mean, I'm really upfront because I don't want to set expectations like, you know, you're going to make $1 million or, you know, the royalties are going to pour in, and it's just not, you know, even when you get published, you know, with a major publishing house, that doesn't happen. You know, that's what's funny thing that people think is that, oh, if I can get Simon and Schuster or Penguin or Random House, or, you know, I'll make a lot of money. You actually will make less per book that way because of all the additional people that have to be paid in that process. And so it's really, you won't, you know, make money that way. And then you're kind of beholden to their process. And I know with Krista, you know, I doubted she would have liked the experience of a publishing house because they control the story. So if they don't like something, it doesn't go in, you know, period. You know, they get final say. So, yeah.
That wouldn't fly.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So, and especially with these sorts of, you know, these sorts of really, you know, raw type of stories that need to be told, you know, that's where we're going to start seeing some of those editors like, I don't know, like that may turn some people off, or, you know, things like that. And Crystal's like, then it turns people off. I mean, that's not my reader, you know, and that's fine. You know, she was very, very much okay with that. Yeah, no problem at all.
Yeah, I know. Probably, I'm sure. Is this like shocking news to anyone, or have you all like heard this before? Because I was like, yeah, Claire's like, this is nuts. I know. I didn't know any of these things. Like my mind was so like expanded after I talked to Nikki, but I was so grateful for the truth and the honesty and like, okay, now I know what I'm getting myself into. And because you're right, that would suck. That would suck to, after all this time and money and energy in 3 years, to say like, oh, now I'm going to wait for all the money to come pouring in.
Right.
And then it doesn't. And I'd be like, what the heck? Like,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's, you know, that's really, that's why I'm just always let people know that just, you know, unless you're, you know, you're a Glennon Doyle, you know, who has, you know, millions and millions of people buying their books. Yeah. She's made a few dollars, you know, with
Oprah is your best friend.
Right, exactly. Sure. You know, then that's sort of a different story, but that's, you know, that's 1% of authors, you know, I mean, it's just so few. So, and yeah, and like someone just mentioned on here, speakers get paid more money if they write a book. Absolutely. When you're trying to get booked on stages, well, the first questions the bookers will ask you is, do you have a book? Now, one thing I will tell you, they don't read it, but they want you to have one. So the people that are responsible for booking the stages. So that's just, it comes with an air of credibility and authority. And that will make, you know, if that's something that you want to do, that will make that space more open to you than if you come in without a book.
Yeah. And then Erin, I know you have a question. We'll get to you very quickly here. I think the biggest thing for me was like, I can't die. I can't leave this earth with these stories inside my head. Like I just couldn't do that. I knew that they had happened for a reason and that I was meant to, you know, share them very publicly. And so that was like a huge part of my why and my driving factor behind all of this. I just can't leave this earth with these stories. So that, and you had told me that too, that like, this is like one of the few tangible things you can leave behind on this earth after your body goes. And I was like, wow, that's powerful.
Yeah. Your story lives on, you know, for your, you know, even, you know, for not only for all of us, but for your children, your grandchildren, or great grandchildren, like that, you know, that will stay, you know, so you could leave them, you know, furniture or a house, but those in time will fall away. But, you know, books are always being published. That story will always be there.
Yeah. I'm not sure if I want Lincoln reading this book, but but yeah.
He may get it a few pages in and be like, okay, Mom, that's
enough. Erin, what was your question?
First off, Krista, I am so proud of you. I knew when I met you, you had a special gift of inspiring other people. And the minute you said you were going to write a book, I knew you were going to follow through and it was going to be amazing. I have not read it yet because it takes a little bit longer to cross the border these days, but I will read it and yell from the top of the roof here in Canada how great it is. I followed along your story on Facebook as you posted as you traveled around. And my question is, your Facebook posts were always very raw and very genuine and very authentic, just as you are. And I wondered if that was your way of testing the waters of what chapters would go well in the book. So if you put something out there, I think you only retracted one thing that you ever put on there. If I remember correctly, that maybe you had shared a name that you didn't have permission to share. But I think that's the only time you ever took back anything you ever posted on there. And I just wondered if you posted stuff and if you got a lot of good feedback where you were like, okay, that's for sure going in the book. Or if you posted something and no one cared about a particular situation that you had traveled through that you thought, okay, that didn't work. Were you testing the audience, I guess is my question.
Yeah, I love that. And you're so smart and intuitive because yeah, you're right. It was like a way to prepare for this book, and it was a way to like build up my vulnerability muscle. And then you're right, when Nikki was always following along too, and when we would see people respond really well to certain types of things, we're like, oh yeah, let's put that in that book. So you're right, it was a really great way of like doing market research. And there are things that we literally pulled directly from social media that is in this book. And I think that's what Glennon Doyle did for her second book, Untamable. Is that her second book?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it seems like it's just a bunch of blogs,
right?
Like all put together, which, it's crazy. Like that's inspiration for anyone here is like, you can take a bunch of social media posts, you can take a bunch of blogs, and you can literally, turn that into a book, because it's like mini chapters right there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But yeah, no, that really helped doing that over the years, because it helped me to know like what type of responses people were going to have. And most of all, it was positive, but every once in a while you get someone who was, really super triggered. And I would bring it back to my coach and my therapist and say, how do I deal with this? How do I handle this? So it was really nice to like, learn how to do that, because that's going to help me now with anything in life, right? Like I don't feel scared to show up however I want to show up on social media, because I trust myself. I trust myself to say whatever I need to say. And if I fuck up, then I can always go back and clean it up. But it's just it's a really freeing and really nice feeling to not be scared, and not scared anymore about what people think. And if I hurt someone, then, to be honest, I'm a little worried about my ex-husband still. Gosh, I'm not looking forward to that day if he knows about this book. We have no communication whatsoever anymore, but
and we changed his name. So
we changed, just so everyone knows, we changed all of the names in this book. And then I changed a lot of the locations and everything as well. So hopefully, I don't know, I'm sure some of you, Erin, I know you probably know who some of the people are, and but I don't know.
It's okay. It's still a great story.
Does that answer your question?
It does answer my question. On one last thing, and then I'll hand the mic back over to you. But just to let you know how much your social media has an impact, a very well-renowned Canadian photographer that's in Ottawa here, who has amazing work and doesn't repost very often, reposted your birthing pictures and as part of her social media. And I have never been so proud to say, yep, that girl right there, naked in the pool, I know her. And so I always see everybody else giving birth and they put lipstick on and they hold their brand new baby and they're like, okay, take the picture. No, not Krista, totally naked and the most vulnerable pictures there are. And I reached out to the photographer and said, I know that girl, if you want to reach out to her. Like, I was just so proud of you, because your work really does resonate further than you might think. And you have a huge fan base, and keep up the good work.
Thank you. That's so cool. I didn't know that. And just if anyone's wondering what Erin's talking about, I did a home birth a year ago, and I had a birth photographer, and I told her, kind of like with this book, I was like, I want the world to know what birth really looks like. Because you're right, a lot of times you just see the after pictures of like someone smiling and saying, oh, I'm so in love. And it's like, but there's so much more that happens before that. So I told her, I was like, yeah, just get everything, get the whole shebang. So you're right. That was like my next biggest layer of like vulnerability and really putting myself out there. So it's nice to know that that's being received positively, because that was kind of scary to do that too.
I had never heard of a birthing photographer until you did it. I was like, what is that? People do that? Of course Krista does that. I should have known she would do that.
I did that, yeah.
But it is true. You see, you know, the ones where they've gotten their hair done and blown out and makeup on, and not Krista, she's on all fours sweating. Like, this is real life, you know, over here, which is just so in tune with everything, you know, else, you know, that you do. And you were very, you know, open and honest. Like, that was not an easy process. You know, this wasn't some beautiful miracle that happened with rainbows and unicorns. And, you know, I mean, it was rough. Rough. Yeah.
Yeah. No rainbows. Yeah. So I'd love to, open it up now. And if anyone else has any other questions, comments, you know, feel free to jump on camera. I'd love to hear from all of you. Tell me, you know, I'd love to hear your thoughts about the book. What was your favorite chapter? What triggered you? So he's like, who's going to be first? Who's going to go? Okay, let me ask a specific question then. What was your favorite chapter? Let's see, Stephanie said, I'm only a couple of chapters in so far, but the abortion chapter has been my favorite. Ooh, Stephanie, are you able to come on camera? And I'm just curious to hear, like, you know, how come that one's your favorite so far? She's probably in the middle of chasing her baby.
I'm chasing Gemma around, but I can totally like talk. Yeah, you know, it was really interesting sitting there and reading the abortion chapter. I'm a really quick reader, but it's interesting because it took me a really long time to read that chapter just because of how intense and vulnerable not only your story, but everybody's stories were in that chapter. And abortion's not something I've ever personally dealt with, but it was really intriguing to me to really see it from this side, hear these stories firsthand. And kind of like you, I was raised in a very religious, abortion is bad household. So it was really interesting to me to see everything from another perspective. And I think I already changed my mind about that, but I think that it just further solidified my feelings of, you know, these are real people that go through this, and it's not an easy thing to do. So I really appreciated your vulnerability and everybody else's during that.
Oh, thank you for saying that, Stephanie. I know you're, you know, thinking about maybe going into women's healthcare as well. And it is important to have a mindset shift around that. You know, being a labor and delivery nurse for 5 years, I was shocked by how many women had gone through abortions and miscarriages. And I was like, when I went through it, I thought I was like one of the few people who did, because nobody talks about it, right? Nobody talks about this stuff publicly. So then when I'm seeing like patient after patient after patient, and they all have histories of this, I'm like, oh my gosh, are we all suffering through this and nobody's talking about it? And we all think we're going through this alone, and we're all these like horrible people. And yeah, especially like, because I grew up really religious, and I used to judge those type of situations. I remember like sitting in church and reading a Bible passage that was talking about how abortion is a sin. I was like, I can't believe women would do that. They need to die. They need to go to hell. Like, and so it's so crazy how once you're in the situation, you can completely change the way you look and think about things. And so I'm really glad that so many women also shared their stories in that chapter too. So just, you know, so many people can see what's really happening. I think it's like 1 in 4 women have abortion. So it's really high rate. So again, it just sucks. It sucks that like all you're watching is the news, like the stories on the news, and you know, you don't get the real facts. You don't get the real emotions behind what goes through something like that. So yeah, that's why that was a really long chapter. And I really went into detail with that story so people could really like understand what that process was like, because it wasn't easy, and it still isn't easy to this day, even though it happened so long ago.
Well, one more thing I wanted to add to that was, I was reading this chapter last week when Texas, my home state, in the town that I grew up in Lubbock, they made a city ordinance against abortions past 6 weeks. And reading all these stories in this book, 6 weeks doesn't give a woman time to really truly find out that she's pregnant. I mean, that's barely any time, and any time to make a decision that hard. And it, when I saw that Lubbock, Texas did that, it made me so angry. And then especially after reading these stories, it was just a very emotional chapter to read, even though I have no personal experience with it.
Yeah. Oh, wow. I didn't realize that about Texas. And yeah, you're right. 6 weeks it's really fast. Cause I mean, you don't even find out till about 4 or 5 weeks when you've missed your period. So, wow. Well, thank you for sharing that, Stephanie. Who else wants to talk about, what were your aha moments from reading this book, even if you're not finished? What's been your experience so far? Yeah, Melinda, go ahead.
I finished the book, and the funny thing is I'm a really slow reader. And I was able to finish that book pretty quickly because I was so drawn into the stories. And what drew me in, I think, was all the different parts, that Krista, that you were sharing. Like I never got bored. It was like, ooh, I get to go into this, part of her, and now I get to go into this part of her. And so for me, it really captured that. So that was very intriguing for me. And I would say that, every chapter had something that kind of grasped me, but I think the biggest one for me was the travel, because it's what I really love doing. And the way the book was done was like, when you got to the travel, it just felt like you'd arrived at freedom, and I know that it wasn't always easy when you were out there,
right?
And you talked about it, which was kind of like, ooh, that's the part that I don't ever think about when you were talking about your family and being worried, and but it was really like, it was still so intriguing to me, because it's like, that's what I've always dreamed of doing, is just like traveling the world. And so it was really great to see that. And I have traveled by myself, and it's been amazing. And it probably is I definitely suggest, for people to try that, because it is a different experience.
Right.
And so that just really encouraged me to get back on that kind of, thought process of like, yeah, we can, my husband and I can do that, and we can be digital nomads, and we can do all these things that we've talked about for so many years, that, all the responsibilities that we have, we can look at things differently. And that was a lot of the theme, I think, of your book, is just looking at things in a different way, and I just hope that people really do read this book, and they see that, that we are complicated people. We all are. There's so many parts of us. And I would love for people to just embrace other people, that way. And of course, judgments come, but I so want people to see what happens when a person really opens up and shows their growth, and how beautiful that is. And if we can do that for each other, so much can happen for humanity. So I loved the book. So thank you.
Oh, and I love that it's inspiring you that you can continue to do solo female travel. Or like you said, with you and Eric, if you want to just take off for 3 months, take off for 6 months. People don't think that's possible, but it is. It's so doable. And it was one of the hardest, the best decisions I've ever made. And you're right, it wasn't like I was sitting under the Eiffel Tower every day drinking coffee and eating pastries. Like, it was like, some of the times were brutal. That story in Nepal, oh my god. But it was worth it, and that's what really helped me to heal from my divorce, and helped me to figure out who I was. And Elizabeth Gilbert, Eat, Pray, Love, a huge role model of mine as well. So I wanted to bring, obviously, inspiration in from that into this story as well. So I like to say this book is like a combination of Eat, Pray, Love, Love Warrior, and 50 Shades of Grey. Yeah. So, but thank you for sharing those thoughts with me. And I agree with you. I'm a slow reader as well. So that's awesome that you were able to quickly get the book done and you weren't bored. Yeah, cool. Anyone else want to share what they thought about the book? Any takeaways, aha moments, breakthroughs? I know, Jennifer, I think you just ordered it. Mary, I said goodbye to you, but it was Lacey that was leaving. Mary, you've been reading the book, right?
No, I haven't started it yet because I've been like waiting for some alone time. Right now, I have a really chatty 4-year-old who's like, look at me, what are you doing? Look at me. And so I'm just it's been sitting on my desk, like I'm just waiting for a minute when I can actually like dive into it. Because for me, there's nothing worse than kind of like trying to focus on something but not being able to get anywhere. And so instead of getting frustrated, I just try to stay unfocused with her, But no, I'm really excited, and I need to order a copy for Lacey now. She was like, "Oh my God!" She was messaging me after about the specifically about swinging. She was like, "This is amazing." So yeah. I'm gonna send her a copy. I'm not gonna tell her. It'll just show up. She'll be surprised.
That's awesome.
Oop.
Perfect. And I think, Heather, you haven't had a chance to read it yet, right? Because you just got back traveling.
Yeah, I haven't read it yet, but I'm definitely gonna order it because, gosh, I didn't know you did. You're participated in swinging and all of that. There's like so much I don't know about you after listening to this, and I'm like, holy crap, I have to get this book. And like, because I know you've done fitness modeling and stuff in the past. I think I saw pictures of that, and there's just like so much about you I don't know. And so yeah, I can't wait to read this book. It sounds really juicy and emotional and all the things that I love about a book that's just going to take me on a journey. I love when a book is like a reflection of the unhealed parts of yourself, because it really causes you to look at those things, and then it's also relatable to those parts of yourself, to the parts of you that feel alone in that woundedness. So I'm really excited for just what this is gonna bring up for me in my life, and the parts that I'll relate to you on. So I can't wait to read it.
Well, that means so much to me that you came, even though you hadn't read it yet, and so it's supporting me. So I appreciate that so much. And yeah, I think you'll get a lot out of this book. There's journal prompts at the end, and I think Melinda was saying this is like like there's actual facts, like it teaches you. Nikki wanted to include the history of abortions, and then we also, what are some other facts that we brought in, Nikki, that you're like, I really think we need to pull this into the story?
Yeah, especially because I think there's so much about abortion that people don't realize. I think most people, Roe versus Wade is, to them, that's kind of when that fight started. It's actually not. Abortions have been around for much long, since the beginning of time, and for a very long time. Not illegal, not something that was to be shamed, anything of that nature. So it's just like fascinating, I think, when people realize, how has that like come about? And so then they kind of realize like, oh, okay, now I kind of understand like where we got to where we are. Because I think understanding how we got there is what's going to help all of us, make sure that, we don't go back to a place where that's something that is illegal, or a place of shame, or isn't an option, for women, that need it. So I think like, history is important for that. So I just thought, because I know when I was researching, it was a lot of it I didn't realize about it. So I just thought it would kind of be like an interesting kind of thing to add in there, so people really understood, how did we get where we are.
Yeah, and I'm so grateful for all of your ideas, Nikki, because there were so many things I wouldn't have thought of to include in this book, and because I've never written a book before, so I didn't really know what I was doing. So yeah, go ahead, Melinda.
Sorry, the other thing that really stood out to me too is kind of your religious background being really strict. And I've kind of heard that through, you know, since I'm a coach, you see a lot of what coaches are coaching on, and there's a lot of religious trauma that that they talk about so much more now than I ever had heard about, and how it has framed so much of their life, you know, and you kind of touched on that. And so I thought that was really interesting, and would always like to hear more about that, because I did not have that in my life. And so it's interesting when I do meet someone who have had so much trauma from all the religious stuff and all the guilt, and, you know, you're going to go to hell. And I just never was brought up that way. So it's very eye-opening. That was very eye-opening for me.
Yeah, that was the first chapter in the book. And it is mind-blowing how much that trauma still affects me every day, and the decisions I make. You know, Kyle and I aren't married, but we had a baby and we're living together, and there's still parts of me that sometimes feel ashamed about that, because, you know, in religion you're taught that if you're going to have sex and you're going to have a baby, you have to be married to do that, or else it's a sin. Also, I think one of the biggest things too that I didn't realize was, so like I tried so hard to abstain from sex growing up, because again, it's a sin, or in religion they view it as a sin if you do that before you get married. And so I had, you know, very few sexual relationships before I met my husband. And then on the day of my wedding, like I just was like, oh my gosh, like I feel so stifled. Like I never got to enjoy my sex life. I never got to go out there and experiment. And that's kind of what led to the open marriage. So it affected so many things in my life. And I don't want to be mad. I don't want to be like mad or resentful at religion. And I definitely want to recognize that for some people, it is what spirituality is for me. Like I can't imagine my life without my spiritual practice now. I use it to run my business. And for some people, that's what religion is for them. So I definitely want to like embrace that. Everyone needs to find, that's what that chapter was about. Like everyone needs to find their own way to connect with something higher than themselves. But if it's coming with this, like this abuse and this trauma, and like, if you don't do this, then you're going to die and go to hell. That's not okay. That's like almost like cult-like, I think, in a way. And Nikki, it's interesting because I know your dad is a pastor, right? So I thought that was kind of interesting, you helping me to write this chapter. And then obviously you're very much in that world.
Very. Yeah, it's exactly how I grew up, only maybe a little bit worse, because my dad, you know, was a pastor. And yeah, we were Nazarene. So, you know, I wasn't allowed to go to movies. I wasn't allowed to go to school dances. I wasn't allowed to participate in sex ed class. I was pulled out. I couldn't even do the square dancing unit in gym class. I had to sit that out. I mean, it was just unbelievably, you know, restrictive, which to no one's probably surprise. I ended up having a baby at 16 because I didn't know anything about sex. No one talked to me about it. I had no idea. Very first time I had sex, I got pregnant. My OBGYN was not shocked. He said that happens more than people realize. But yeah, I mean, it was very, very stifling, and very much, if you don't follow a certain protocol, you know, you're going to hell. I mean, that was just, and it's interesting that I still have a lot of, I joke about it and say, you know, it's the Jesus in me that's like still left over, that I just haven't gotten like all out yet. In certain ways, like, you know, I'm very uncomfortable, like naked, even alone. I like, because that was so shameful growing up. Like, you just would never did you not have clothes on, like at all times. Like, your body was something to be covered up. It was not something to be proud of and I'm 41 and I still have that. Like, that I don't wear revealing clothes. It's like you were saying, it's amazing what you can't get out. Even though, you know, it's nothing to be ashamed of. It's totally fine. But just things like that just stick with you, you know, all those years later.
Wow. I did not know the extent of all of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And luckily for me, my dad he's done a lot of growing and changing over the years. I mean, he's still religious. But he's nowhere near as like he was when I was growing up. Like he's much more flexible and progressive than he was when I was younger.
Yeah,
I don't know about your mom. Has your mom gotten more progressive, Krista?
Oh yeah, like my family's not super religious anymore. Like none of them go to church anymore. So, yeah, but yeah, and it's, it's crazy the things that we teach our parents, and I'm sure there's going to be things that Lincoln's going to be teaching me, and things that your son is teaching you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Okay. So I'm loving this. I'm loving these open, this open discussion and bringing these beautiful, amazing topics. So is there anything else that anyone wants to add before we start wrapping up? Just any last final thoughts? And it can just be about anything. Yeah, go ahead, Erin.
Okay, what's your plan? How are you going to promote? Or will I see you at a local chapters in Ottawa sometime soon? Will I be lined up down the street saying, but I know her. Like, I want to go to the front of the line. Like, tell me your plan. What's going on?
Yeah. Well, I have no idea how to do in-person stuff, to be honest. Like so many people have been asking me, like, are you going to do book signings and go to bookstores? And like, I don't know how to do that. So Nikki, if you have any advice.
Yes. The best place to start is your local Barnes & Noble, because the GMs have a lot of autonomy over their store. So pre-COVID, and probably depending on where you live, how it might shake out, but or what store you're approaching, but they love local authors. So for the most part, they're happy to put your book there, do an author night, author signing, where you could do a book reading, Q&A, sign books. So yeah, your local Barnes & Noble is great for that. And then also, like any independent bookstore, same thing. They're always looking for ways to get people in the door. And so, if you want to have an author night and there's potential for people to come put traffic into their store, they're happy to do it. Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
And then, too, a lot of it is, rallying your tribe, like who do you know in this city, where you could set up like a meet and greet at their Barnes & Noble. Like, who do you know in the city? Who do you know? And just kind of going around. Canada might take a little bit for them to let us back in. That may be the last stop on the tour.
I'm sorry. Like in a good Canadian way, I'm sorry. But Krista, I will find you a good old Tim Hortons, and I will get you a little booth outside of there. So.
Perfect. I love that. So, okay. Yeah. So obviously this is one step in my plan. I need to figure out how to start doing in-person book signings now, because my comfort space is the online world. I've been reaching out to a lot of people who have podcasts and YouTube channels, and I created like a podcast one sheet. And so I'm going to just start, borrowing other people's audiences and that have like-minded audiences. And that's something I didn't realize either, is that like, you can't just like write a book and then like say, okay, now like people come to me, come find me. Like it doesn't work.
You have to go to them.
You have to go to them. You have to like kind of like design your own book tour. And yeah, so I've been like reaching out to people, and then I'm just gonna also see, Sophia, who's on this call right now, she's a book coach. She also was really helpful with answering a lot of my questions during this process. And she was telling me to not get burned out, that a lot of authors think that you have to like go really hard the first month. And really I could be promoting this book for years and doing, which I'm sure I will. I'm sure there'll be lots of like speaking opportunities and other things that will come up years from now. And I don't have to like go balls to the walls within the first month. So just trying to pace myself. And then I definitely thinking about what the second book is going to be. And I think it's definitely going to be all about my journey with motherhood. Because that really feels like that's like been part 2. And that's obviously a very taboo topic as well. And I was almost thinking about calling it like, I'm a bad mother. And just talking about like all the things you're not supposed to do as a mother, and starting off with like how I had a baby at home, which you're not supposed to do, and all the things. So that's kind of.
Well, you definitely have good pictures for the front of the book.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So that might be book number 2, but that'll be a couple years down the road because I'm still writing that story as we speak. So I'll just focus on this one right now. Yeah, that was a great question. Thank you for asking that. Anyone else want to ask any questions? Any last thoughts? Oh, while we're letting people think, I forgot that I created a virtual goodie bag for you all as well. So I'm going to put that in the chat box. I'm so excited for this. I was working really hard on it. There is bookmarks in there that I designed. There's a dream life meditation. There is screensavers. There's a journal prompts and workbook. So if you guys want to copy that link, and then you can have access to that. And that's just a little thank you for coming and being a part of this and supporting me on my journey. Yeah. Yeah, I think, Sophia, I think that was your idea to do a virtual goodie bag. So thank you for that. All right. Yeah.
And one thing I would suggest to you, Krista, is start a book club. Yeah, virtual book club. You know, everybody get your wine, your drink of choice, and you know, you sit and you go through the book piece by piece, break it down with everybody, and then even from there, you can continue on to other books. You know, you don't have to end the book club because you're at the end of your book. You know,
right. No, it's funny you said that because that was the first year I was running my coaching business. I had a virtual book club because I was like, every coach loves to read and is into personal development. So that would be fun to bring that back. That's a good idea. Yeah. Love that. Okay. Well, thank you so much, everyone. This was so fun. And Nikki, thank you for taking the time to be.
Of course.
Obviously, working with me the past 3 years.
Absolutely. My pleasure.
Yeah, this has been great. So you all are amazing. Keep reaching out to me as you're reading the book and telling me what you're getting from it. Feel free to share this book with as many people as you know that you feel like it could really help to change their lives. That would mean so much to me. So. All right.
Absolutely.
Okay,
bye.
Good night, everyone.
Bye.